What's up, wrestling fans? I'm Steven from the Hills Maniacs, and today I'm going to be talking about 5 AEW wrestlers that I think should make their return to WWE sometime in the future. Obviously, these are wrestlers that jumped ship from WWE and ended up in AEW and have been there ever since. Some of them fairly recently, some of them have been there pretty much almost since the beginning or something, whatever. And over the years, we've seen a lot of AEW people return to WWE. Like the most recent example, I think, would be Cody Rhodes. He was the most prominent figure in AEW, I'd say, one of the founding members of AEW, and ended up leaving and going to WWE. So kind of with that in mind, these are my picks for some AEW wrestlers on the current roster that I think should return to WWE for another run in the future. The first one up is Jon Moxley. As you all know, in WWE he was known as Dean Ambrose, and I feel like they sort of wasted his potential when he was in WWE. He was WWE champion at one point, but they never seemed to really do much with him. They only gave him the title like one time. I don't think they held him to the same regard as like Roman and Seth, as like the members of the Shield and everything. I don't think he was considered one of the more important superstars on the roster, at least to WWE. But then you look at the work that he's done as Jon Moxley in AEW, and it's a complete 180. He's a totally different character. I know that's how he was on the indies, I guess, before coming to WWE, so he was this like sort of menacing figure almost, this guy who's like not afraid of getting beat down and getting hurt and everything else. Like he takes the punishment and like smiles with it, kind of. So to see him return to WWE as this Jon Moxley character, exactly how he is, just return to WWE and be known as Dean Ambrose, but with the personality and fighting style and everything of Jon Moxley, I think that would work really well on the current regime of WWE, and I think he would stand out as one of like the biggest heels in the company if they kept him exactly how he is. It's the same thing, they did with Cody Rhodes when he returned to WWE. They essentially kept him as the Cody Rhodes that he was in AEW, not the Cody Rhodes that he was when he left WWE in the first place, because that, they had that whole like dashing Cody Rhodes and then like Stardust and all that stuff. When he returned to WWE from AEW, he was essentially the same character with the same music and everything else. So I think doing the same thing with Jon Moxley, I think could really work. And we need some of those types of heels in WWE nowadays. There's guys like Drew McIntyre and stuff that are kind of like that. He's on an agenda and he doesn't care if he loses matches and all that sort of stuff. He's just out to get people. And I think Jon Moxley could be the same way and be one of those like really intriguing characters where it's like, this guy is literally crazy. Like, who's going to stop him if he doesn't really care about pain and all that kind of stuff? I think it'd be really fun to see him return to WWE and cause all kinds of chaos. Maybe start a sort of Death Riders-like faction in WWE and just go after the World Championship again and like hold on to it for a year or something. Just keep up the exact gimmick he has in AEW, but back in WWE as Dean Ambrose, and I think the fans would really love that as well. And it would definitely show that he is capable of being one of those top stars in the company. But if they gave him the chance to really shine as this form of Dean Ambrose, this Jon Moxley type gimmick, I think it could really skyrocket him to the top of the company and make him one of the top heels and one of the most memorable characters in a similar fashion to like Mankind and that sort of thing. Like, he would go down in history, I think, as one of these biggest, most craziest people on the roster in WWE history if they would let him just come back to WWE, with the Jon Moxley character. Next up is Adam Cole. He hasn't really done a whole lot in AEW as of this recording. They didn't really ever put a championship on him yet. He did kind of hold the Ring of Honor tag team titles with MJF, and he had that whole MJF feud there and everything, but I just think they wasted the chance to use Adam Cole when he was in NXT. They didn't really ever bring him up to the main roster, and then they just released him and like Roderick Strong and all them, the Undisputed Era, essentially from the roster, and never really did anything with them, never brought any of them up to the main roster or anything. And I do think that Adam Cole has this good in-ring presence. He's good on the mic and everything else. The crowd gets behind him. They love his music and all that stuff. whether he wasn't when he was in NXT or even his current one in AEW and stuff. The crowd gets behind him whether he's a heel or babyface. I think he just has that kind of presence. So to kind of bring him back to WWE and give him a run on the main roster, maybe even as the Adam Cole he is in AEW, which is essentially the same one that he was in NXT, so it's not really any different necessarily, but I just think it wasn't fair that he never really got to show what he can do on the main roster of WWE. So I hope that someday Adam Cole can return to WWE and really get an opportunity to be on the main roster and maybe win a world championship or something like that. I think he is up there with some of the stars that WWE currently has, like Seth Rollins and all them. And also on the same note, maybe couple him with like also Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly and them and bring back the Undisputed Era as a faction. Bring all three of them back together, and let them run on WWE's main roster, because they kind of need tag teams right now and that sort of thing. So maybe bring all three of them back, give them another chance. I'd like to see how they do with Triple H now running WWE, and he's essentially running it the same way that he ran NXT almost, with focusing heavier on the storytelling and all that stuff versus the in-ring performing. And since he was there for the golden age of NXT and Adam Cole was like one of his main people, I think he would give Adam Cole the spotlight that he deserves and give him that second chance to really show what he can do on the main roster. Next up is Christian Cage. I know he left WWE, I guess, because he was told to retire, kind of in a similar way to like Edge and Daniel Bryan and stuff. Like they were told they had to retire from pro wrestling, so they kind of just left WWE or they were released, whatever. And then they continued to wrestle in AEW and everything. Like Bryan Danielson really killing it with some of the matches that he had and stuff. Even though he was told to retire, he was able to come back. Christian's the same way. Like he was in WWE, then they brought him, or then he kind of went to TNA for a while. Then he came back and was part of their ECW like reboot brand and all that kind of stuff. Never really got to shine too much on the main roster. He did win like the World Heavyweight Championship and everything. But I don't think they really saw the potential in Christian to be the next sort of like Edge character almost. And especially he was affiliated with Edge a lot. He was partnered with him and everything else. But the work that he's been doing in AEW as the leader of the patriarchy, this like father figure to some of these AEW wrestlers, like he considers himself to be their father almost. Like he's in a heel faction, and he's like one of the top heels in the company, I would say, at the moment. I think the work that he's done with that whole gimmick and everything has been really well put together, and every time you see Christian on the screen, we're booing him and all that kind of stuff. He is a heel. He's a big jerk and everything to like everyone in the roster. Anybody that's lost a father or a father figure in their life or anything, he like mentions that in his promos and all that kind of stuff. That gimmick I think that he's got right now really works. I don't know if it would work in WWE necessarily, but I think just bringing him back to WWE and letting him be a heel like he is now in AEW, I think could really work and make him one of the top heels of the company, like just like he is now in AEW. And I do think eventually they are going to put the world title on him in AEW, so maybe do the same thing in WWE as well if they would bring him back. Let him have a run as world champion again, see how he does on the main roster. Like I said, they kind of need those kind of heel characters and everything to really freshen up the roster. So like if Christian were to return to WWE, I think that would work really well, because he's shown what he can do as a performer now by playing this heelish character. He's been a heel in the past and everything, but nothing to the caliber that he's got going on now. The acting and all that stuff is really top notch in his gimmick that he's got as the leader of the patriarchy. So I think he's proven enough that another run in WWE might be warranted, and I think he deserves to be a world champion again and be at the top of their roster. The next one on my list is Toni Storm. I think the work that they did with her in AEW compared to WWE is like night and day. She's playing this gimmick where she's like sort of an actress or something, going through the different eras of just pro wrestling or just movies, sort of like she feels like she's like a movie actress kind of thing. This timeless Toni Storm gimmick she's got going on. I think the fans really connected with that, and they really love her as a character And just as a pro wrestler and everything else, and as a performer, she's really made a star out of herself in AEW. And I think she's done enough to where, like, if WWE was looking for people to bring back to their company, I think they would have their sights set on bringing her back to freshen up their women's division. You know, just like AEW brought Sasha Banks from WWE and made her a big star or whatever, like just on the indies and then into AEW and stuff. It'd be the same thing that WWE could do by bringing Toni Storm back to WWE. She didn't really get to do much on the main roster either. I don't think she was on the main roster for very long. Like, I know she was in NXT for a bit, and then she came up and she was just kind of another joke of a character that was just thrown into the women's division, got like a pie thrown in her face and all that kind of stuff. That's like what people most remember about her from her run in WWE. So I think now that she's made a new character for herself and made herself a bigger star with this new timeless gimmick that she's got going on, I think bringing her back to WWE as exactly timeless Toni Storm, you know, but like maybe toned down a little bit for like the PG era audiences and that sort of stuff, but just this whole timeless gimmick, I think it could work, and it would be really unique to see that in WWE as part of their new era that they have. And then finally, I have Swerve Strickland. He was formerly known as Isaiah Swerve Scott in NXT when he was in WWE. And of course, he was part of the Hit Row faction in NXT, which didn't really get a whole lot of momentum or anything. They were all kind of released, and then the three of them were brought back when Swerve went to AEW. So that group didn't really do much in WWE or anything. But the work they did to make Swerve a star in AEW, I think, needs to be studied, because they like turned him into this mega star, like pretty much right from the get-go. The moment he came in there, they eventually made him the world champion. His rivalry with Hangman Page was really brutal and everything. They had a series of matches together. I think he's really good in the ring and everything, and they never gave him a chance in WWE to be like a single star. But now that he's as big of a star as he is and one of the favorites in AEW, and a lot of the fans really love him, I think another run in WWE, just by himself, not as part of a faction or anything, I think he could be one of the top stars, just because of the stardom he's been able to gain while he's been part of AEW's roster. So there you go, guys. Those were 5 AEW wrestlers that I think should return to WWE in the future. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. Who would you want to see return to WWE? Also, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more, and check out all the other wrestling content we've uploaded on this channel in the past as well, and look for anything that we might upload in the future. Thank you for watching the video, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.